Okay, so remember Beanie Babies?
Oh, yeah.
Those plush toys that like took the world by storm back in the 90s? I mean, they turned kids into like serious collectors
Uh-huh.
and sent parents into those frantic eBay bidding wars.
Yeah. Crazy
It
times.
really was. Well, today we're diving into the mind behind all that, behind the Beanie Baby madness.
Uh-huh.
Ty Warner, the man who built a $1 billion empire basically on beans and polyester stuffing.
Right.
So is he like a marketing genius and a generous philanthropist? Or is there is there a darker side? Like, is he a shrewd manipulator who also dodged taxes? Well, stick with us as we unpack his story. You decide.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me about Ty Warner is, well, his life is full of these contradictions. He
No.
comes from like a really difficult background, but he still achieves incredible success.
Right.
And then he's known for his generosity, but also for some, some questionable business practices. It really makes you wonder what drives a guy like him.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's start at the beginning then. So his childhood, it wasn't exactly idyllic, was it?
No, not at all. I mean, if you look at sources like Wikipedia, Warner's parents struggled with mental illness.
Oh, wow.
And their relationship, it was strained. It's hard to even imagine what that must have been like for him growing up. Makes you wonder if those early experiences fueled his ambition, his drive to create something extraordinary, to escape it all.
Yeah. So he first tries his hand at acting in L.A.,
He does.
but that doesn't really work out.
No.
So he ends up back in Chicago selling plush toys for a company called Duckin'.
Yeah, Dawkins.
And even then, he already had that knack for predicting what would sell.
It's almost like he had this intuitive understanding of what customers wanted. He even challenged the company line sometimes because he thought he knew better. And that confidence, it's pretty amazing when you think about it, that combined with his keen eye for market trends, well, that would really serve him well later on.
Right. And in 1986, he takes a huge leap of faith, mortgages his house, founds Thai Inc., inspired by those stuffed cats he saw in Italy.
Yeah.
He had this vision of creating smaller, more affordable plush toys.
Mm.
And he decided to focus on independent toy stores instead of those big retailers.
That was a really bold move going against like the conventional wisdom at the time.
Yeah.
Most companies, they would have tried to get their products into the big chains, for maximum exposure.
Uh-huh.
But Warner, I think he understood the power of creating this sense of exclusivity.
Right, and then there's his whole strategy, right, of limiting those production runs and retiring certain Beanie Babies. That's what really sent the collecting world into a frenzy, right?
Totally. He understood the principle of artificial scarcity.
Yeah.
By deliberately limiting the supply of certain beanies, he made them seem even more desirable. Like you had to have it. It created this sense of urgency, this fear of missing out that made people spend crazy amounts of money just to get their hands on them.
So he's playing on people's emotions then, like
Right.
their desire to collect, their fear of being left out.
Right.
It's brilliant,
It is.
but also maybe a bit manipulative. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, that's a question, isn't it? I mean, was he just a brilliant marketer, a guy who understood how to tap into human psychology? Or was he exploiting people's desires for his own gain? It's a debate that people are still having today.
Yeah, that makes sense. And by 1999, Beanie Babies were a full-blown phenomenon.
Yeah.
Warner's net worth, it skyrockets. He becomes a billionaire.
Yeah.
But here's where things get really interesting. Amidst all this success, he makes this decision that seems so ahead of its time.
Mhm.
He embraces the internet.
He does. And this is back in the mid-90s when most people, they barely even knew what the internet was.
Right.
But he allows this college student, Lena Trivedi, to create the first Beanie Baby website.
Wow. So he saw the potential of the internet as a marketing tool before most people even had email addresses.
Exactly. It was a brilliant move. The website, it became the central hub for Beanie Baby fans, a place where they could connect with each other, share information, and try to track down those really elusive retired beanies. It fueled the craze even further.
It's amazing to think about how different the whole Beanie Baby phenomenon might have been without the internet. It's like he knew, like intuitively understood how technology could be used to create and sustain a community around a product.
And it really foreshadowed the way brands would use social media in the future, right?
Yeah.
To engage with customers and build loyalty.
It makes you wonder if he just had a knack for being in the right place at the right time, or if he truly was a visionary, like he understood the future.
Mm.
But let's move on to something a little more personal. Warner's relationships with women, they've been the subject of a lot of speculation, have they?
Yeah, definitely. Warner's never married, but he's had these several long-term relationships. And some of them ended, well, they ended pretty dramatically. And these relationships, they weren't just personal. They often kind of intersected with his business in some interesting ways.
So tell me more about these women and their roles in the Beanie Baby empire.
Well, there were two women in particular, Patricia Roche and Faith McGowan, who were, deeply involved in the company's success. They provided valuable input, on the design and development of Beanie Babies, according to sources like the Cinemaholic and Yahoo
So
Lifestyle.
they weren't just like silent partners.
Yeah.
They were like actively shaping the brand.
Right.
That's pretty remarkable for that time, don't you think?
It is. It suggests that Warner, he really valued their opinions and he recognized their contributions to the business. But not all his relationships ended on such positive terms.
Right. I'm thinking specifically about Catherine Zimmy. She accused Warner of physical abuse back in 2021.
Yeah, those allegations, they're serious. Although Warner's lawyer did deny them, it adds another layer of complexity to his story.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, about the man behind this Beanie Baby empire. It's important to remember, though, those are just allegations. And Warner hasn't actually been charged with any crimes related to Zimmy's claims. But it does make you think about the contrast between his public persona and his private life, right?
Yeah.
He cultivates this image of a generous benefactor, but then you have these accusations of controlling behavior.
Yeah, it's really hard to reconcile those two sides of him. Speaking of generosity, though, let's dive into his philanthropy. He's donated millions to various charities over the years, right?
He has.
But is it, genuine altruism? Or is it a calculated move to maybe improve his image?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some critics argue that his philanthropic efforts, they actually increased in the years leading up to his tax evasion charges.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, he received the Children's Champion Award from the Children's Hunger Fund in 2006.
Okay.
And that was, just a few years before those charges came to light.
So it almost seems like he was trying to build up some goodwill before the storm hit.
It's possible, but we also have to consider that he does have a long history of charitable giving, even before any of those legal troubles.
Right.
He donated millions to create the Ty Warner Sea Center in Santa Barbara. And he's given generously to organizations like the Andre Agassi Foundation and the Princess Diana Memorial Fund.
Okay, so there's evidence to support both sides of the argument then.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what was really going on in his head, but it raises a bigger question, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, how do we as a society, how do we even discern, genuine philanthropy from actions that are designed to just benefit the giver's reputation?
Yeah, it's such a complex issue. I think we, as a society, we need to be more critical of philanthropy, especially when it comes from from individuals with questionable pasts.
Yeah.
Are they really trying to make a difference, or are they just trying to buy good PR?
And with Ty Warner, it's even more complicated, right? Because he's built his entire career on understanding and manipulating desire. He's a master of perception. He knows how to create like an image and a narrative that just benefits him.
Precisely. So we have to ask ourselves, is his philanthropy, is it a genuine expression of his values, or is it just another marketing tactic? It's really hard to say for sure.
Well, let's shift gears for a minute and talk about how Ty Warner is being portrayed in popular culture. There's that new movie out, The Beanie Bubble.
Yeah.
Starring Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that Warner himself he's praised the film.
He has.
Even though it doesn't shy away from showing his flaws.
I know. It's almost like he's acknowledging that his story isn't this, simple tale of triumph. Like, there are dark sides to his success.
Or maybe he just sees it as another opportunity to keep people talking about him and Beanie Babies.
Perhaps. But regardless of his intentions, I think the film has, it sparked this whole new conversation about his legacy. And it's kind of forcing people to reevaluate, their perceptions of him.
Yeah, and that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating, right? We're not just recounting a series of events. We're trying to understand the person behind them, the motivations, the complexities.
Absolutely. And with Ty Warner, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Hmm.
Every new piece of information, it reveals another facet of his personality, another contradiction.
So let's talk about another one of those contradictions, his tax evasion conviction. Back in 2014, he was sentenced to 2 years probation and fined $53 million for hiding money in a Swiss bank account.
Right.
This is a pretty serious
It
offense. I
is.
mean, it really undermines his whole philanthropic persona, doesn't it?
It does. It raises those questions about the authenticity of his giving. Was it genuine, or was it a calculated attempt to distract from his illegal activities?
It's like we're constantly trying to figure out which Ty Warner we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Is he the charming entrepreneur who brought joy to millions of kids with his cuddly creations, or is he this ruthless businessman who's willing to break the law for his own financial gain?
That's the crux of it, and it's a question that we all have to grapple with. I mean, not just in relation to Ty Warner, but in our interactions with the world around us.
Mm.
How do we judge people who are capable of both, good and bad actions?
It's a constant challenge, right? I mean, we want to believe in people's capacity for goodness,
Yeah.
especially when we see them doing charitable work. But then we uncover these darker aspects of their lives, and it just makes us question everything.
I think it's important to avoid making snap judgments. We need to consider like the whole picture, the good, the bad, and the complicated.
Well, maybe that's the real takeaway here.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not about labeling Ty Warner as a hero or a villain. Maybe it's about recognizing that human beings are complex creatures,
Mm.
capable of great things and terrible things.
I think you're right, and perhaps that's the most valuable lesson that we can learn from this deep dive into the life of Ty Warner.
But there's still more to explore. I mean, we've talked about his past, his business practices, his philanthropy, his personal life. But what about the future? Like, where does Ty Inc. go from here? Can a brand that's built on nostalgia and speculation, can it really thrive in today's market?
Those are excellent questions, and that's what we'll be exploring in our final segment.
All right, so we've dug into Ty Warner's past, explored his triumphs and controversies, and now we're left with this question: what's next for the guy who built an empire on Beanie Babies? Like, can he recapture that magic in a world that's kind of moved on from the plush toy craze?
Yeah, that's a big challenge for
I-
sure. I mean, the toy industry today, it's so different than it was back in the 90s.
Sure.
Kids have so many more entertainment options now, to capture their attention and their dollars. That requires a whole different kind of strategy.
Yeah, you're right. Those playground trading days, they feel like ancient history now.
They do.
So how is Warner adapting?
Well, he's trying to stay ahead of the curve
Hmm.
by, expanding beyond just Beanie Babies.
Okay.
He's introduced some new product lines, like Beanie Boppers.
Beanie Boppers.
Yeah, they're basically Beanie Babies, but with like sound chips that make them, sing and dance.
Interesting. It's like he's trying to modernize the brand, appeal to a generation that's grown up with interactive technology. But does that, I don't know, does that dilute like the essence of what made Beanie Babies so special? That tactile, collectible quality.
I mean, it's a risk, but remember, Warner has always been a risk taker.
That's true.
He's not afraid to experiment,
Right.
and who knows, maybe these Beanie Boppers will become the next big craze.
Yeah, I guess only time will tell. But it reminds me of how he, embraced the internet back in the 90s.
Right.
He saw the potential of online marketing before most people even had a clue. Maybe he's onto something again with these high-tech beanies.
It's definitely possible. He just seems to have this instinct for anticipating trends, like
Yeah.
understanding what consumers want before they even know it themselves.
Speaking of understanding consumers, let's talk about his recent philanthropic efforts.
Mm.
He released those limited edition Beanie Babies to benefit the victims of the Hawaii wildfires, right?
It did.
And he pledged to donate all the profits to the American Red Cross.
Yeah, that's a smart move.
Hmm.
Cause-related marketing, it's becoming so important these days, especially for brands that want to appeal to younger consumers.
Yeah.
People want to support companies that are doing good in the world.
But it also makes me wonder, is this, genuine altruism? Or is it a savvy marketing ploy? It's hard to know for sure with Ty Warner. I mean, he's got this history of generosity, but then there's also, that tax evasion conviction that kind of casts a shadow over his motives.
It's a valid concern, and
Yeah.
it raises a really important question for all of us. How do we navigate this complex world of corporate philanthropy? Do we just accept any company's claim of, doing good? Or do we dig a little deeper, examine their track record and consider the possibility of ulterior motives?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think it's about, being informed consumers, doing
Mhm.
our research, and supporting companies that align with our values, both in terms of their products and their commitment to social responsibility.
I agree. It's not just about writing checks. It's about, integrating ethical practices and a commitment to social good into like the very fabric of the business.
Now, before we wrap things up, I have to ask about his foray into the luxury hotel business. He owns Four Seasons properties, and it seems like he's really investing in this side of his empire.
It's an interesting move. It's like he's diversifying his portfolio,
Mm.
building a legacy that goes beyond just Beanie Babies. And let's be honest, luxury hotels. I mean, that's a pretty safe bet. People with money, they'll always want to travel in style.
Yeah, that's true. But it makes me think about his evolution as a businessman.
Yeah.
He started out by targeting those smaller independent toy stores, created a sense of exclusivity around Beanie Babies. Now, with these luxury hotels, he's catering to a more, I don't know, elite clientele.
It's a definite shift in focus, that's for sure. And it'll be interesting to see how he applies his business acumen and his marketing savvy to this new industry.
One thing's for sure, Ty Warner, he's a complex and unpredictable figure. He's a self-made billionaire, a marketing genius, a convicted tax evader, a generous philanthropist, and now a luxury hotelier.
Yeah, his story, it's full of twists and turns, highs and lows.
Oh, right.
It's a reminder that success, it's rarely a straight line, and even the most brilliant minds, they can be clouded by, flaws and questionable choices.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Ty Warner, I think we're left with more questions than answers.
Mhm.
Is he a visionary entrepreneur,
Wow.
a shrewd manipulator, or maybe a bit of both? I mean, we'll leave that for you to decide.
Yeah.
But one thing is certain: his story is it's a fascinating exploration of ambition, innovation, and the ethical dilemmas that they often accompany wealth and success. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.